Today William and I are going to talk about some of our projectile options using the same pattern we used before, our Sayoc Vital Template 2 of 9. Now, just as a quick review, in the template we start off with a high slash, mid-level slash for 2, a high hooking thrust for 3, mid-level hooking thrust for 4, palm up, uppercut for 5, palm down, slash to the femoral for 6, for 7, I thrust it into the heart, 8, straight down slash to abdominal aorta, and 9, a mid-level palm up thrust in the template. It's really to the abdominal aorta through the navel. Now, if we're using projectiles, one of the things that we can do is, especially off the slashing lines for our longer range, instead of slashing, we can release our projectiles. And everything we have in Sayoc can be done in all of our ranges, including projectile range and including our close-up and mid-level range kind of isolations. So we're just going to show some of the things from 2 of 9 using our slashing lines. That's going to be our 1 and 2. We'll skip 3 and 4. We'll show 5 and 6. We'll skip 7. We'll show 8. And we'll skip 9, at least for now. Now, as we discussed before, one of my major obstacles when I have William in front of me is just that I don't have the range to reach a threat that may have the range to reach him. So what I can do now is, if I don't have my long blade, I can start to use my projectile technology. All of the projectile information that I have and that I'm going to show does all stem from the Sayoc and Atienza systems. Now, I'm wearing a typical Sayoc and Atienza mid body and upper body rig. These are short blade rigs that are really designed to assist us in learning how to place different weapons for deployment, for carry, and also how to access from different placements in our body. As we've stated many times in the past, this is not necessarily how I carry on the street, but definitely as a way for me to practice and find ways that I can place and holster my blades in different configurations. So as I start off, for my 1 and 2, I'm going to have my palm up high and palm down mid-level projectiles. So from here, I don't necessarily have the range for a zero rotation projectile, but I may have the range for a half rotation projectile. So my 1, I have 1 here. For 2, I have it here. As we said before, I'm going to skip 3 and 4. For 5, I have this projectile here. So instead of whipping it like a bolo punch, I can do kind of an underhand projectile here. For 6, I don't have the range for this kind of projectile, the zero spin projectile, but I may have it here. From there, I'm going to skip 7. And for 8, it's just my straight down. And then 9, as I practice my draws, I'll come up here. Again, I have, for my 1, my palm up, high projectile. For 2, mid-level, palm down projectile. I'm going to skip 3 and 4. For 5, I have this underhand projectile here. For 6, I have another palm down projectile here. I'm going to skip 7 and 8, I have this projectile here. And then 9, I go in for my thrust. Now obviously William and I are not going to be fixed engaging in a target as I'm throwing projectiles and he remains in front of me and no one else is moving and we're not moving. So, some of it, as we had discussed before, as I start to engage, I don't have to wait till we're at point 0. I can actually start to engage at a further reach to keep him away and give me time to start to move him and use evasive maneuvers to get out of a dangerous area. As I do so, I may have my cuts or my projectiles here, and now I may find myself doing projectiles on one side or another. So we're going to show projectiles from this side, my right side, as I either move him away, and we're coming here, or as we're escaping this way, but I still need to engage a threat on my right side. So for this particular template, the template we're using, Vital Template 2 of 9, certain lines will lend themselves a little bit better to projectiles on this side. So the ones that we're going to be using, we're going to skip 1. We're going to use 2 as this projectile here. We'll skip 3 and 4. 5, we'll have a projectile here. It's on this line, but really in the template it's an uppercut. So I'll do underhand projectile here. 6, it's probably better on this side. 7, we'll skip. 8, we'll do this projectile here. And 9, we'll skip it right now again. So the main lines we're going to be just using is 2, 5, and 8. So now I'll have my line 2. So as my 0 spin projectile, I have it here. I have my 5. I'm going to do an underhand projectile here, 0 spin. And then I'll have my 8. So this is my 0 spin projectile overhead, just right there. Now a little bit further, I have my count 2. I have my count 5. And then I'll have my count 8. So as I mentioned before, certain lines of the template lend themselves better to targets on my right or on my left. On my right side, I use my 2, my 5, and my 8. Now, and these are all slashes, now on this side, I'm going to be using my 1. I can use my 3 and my 4. I'm not going to use my 5. If I had the opportunity, I could use a 6, but we're going to skip that today. 7, I can do again, but 7 will replicate 3. My 8, again, lends itself better to this side, and my 9 will really replicate 4. So really the lines that I'm just going to practice for today, I'm going to show you are my 1 line, and my 3, and my 4. So now with these lines, if I would try and do a 0 spin rotation, I really have to be just beyond my slashing reach, or beyond my touching reach. And at that range, I would have to have William about this close to my target, especially when I'm crossing my body, which I really would not like to do. So if I'm going to engage before a target, before a threat gets this close, so let's say I'm at the very closest that I like to be is, a couple feet, then I have to start going into my further range, or half spin, or even full rotation projectiles. So for my 1, I have this here, and for my 3 and my 4, I can do these kinds of more wristy projectiles, which is my 3, and then my 4. Now we started off our projectiles with my target in front of me. We modified the template so I could use my projectiles in certain lines on my right side, and then the last part we finished on the left. Lastly, we're going to go into projectiles that may be, projectile targets rather, that may be behind me as I'm trying to flee with William, and we may be in pursuit. Now, we'll cover this in the future. There is a subset of the Sayoc system called Guard 5 that a lot of the curriculum and material was designed to be built, to be used, to be able to fight while you are in pursuit. But using Vital Template 2 of 9, the 2 main lines that we're going to use is just our 3 and 4, or it really could be 7 and 9. Any of these arcing lines that hook or come around, I can start to use them as projectiles. Now, Tuhan Carl Atienza had shown us projectiles that they do when the target is really almost on your back, and you can projectile in many different ways. We had projectiles where we projectiled over this shoulder, we had them here, and we had them behind the back here. So there's lots of ways where you can do them. The main ones I'm going to show are just 3 and 4. So again, I have my 3, which is right here, and then 4 could be really the same. I'm either going high or low, or I could even have it with my arm, but really my 4 line is right there. And I do have this behind the back projectile here too. So hopefully some of this material gave you a better sense of how we use projectiles, or at least begin to use projectiles in the Sayoc and Atienza systems. Now, as I stated before, this may not be how I carry, how I load out, and how I place my weapons every day. These are just training measures that I use to learn how to deploy and access blades from different positions. So I may not have my rig, but now I have a wheelchair.